Now. Today, we're going to go over something that we really haven't talked about on the review before, and that's, well, COVID. As we've seen throughout the last few weeks, and specifically this last week, many people went out for Thanksgiving, ignoring concerns and worries about many specialists, including Dr. Fauci, for saying, stay home, keep yourself protected, keep your family and loved ones protected. But as we saw, airplanes and airports were completely jam-packed with tons of commuters going all across the country to be with their loved ones. And well, now we're soon to expect what we could see as a repercussion. And before we get started, I'd like to say that we're going to go a little bit in depth on just a specific, we're going to go in depth looking at California today. So for starters, thank you and welcome to the review. So what we have going on in the US is coronavirus. As we just said earlier, COVID has completely rampaged the entire nation. And in the graphic that we got from the New York Times on your screen right now, 14.2 million people have been infected. And just as of yesterday, about 200,000 more new cases are on the rise. And this is a 1% increase trend that's been continuing for the last few weeks. As we see that we have a death toll of 276,000 people, with a daily toll of 2,885, so about 3,000 people who've passed away to COVID just yesterday. And this specifically has hit everyone from all across the country. Even back in my hometown in New Mexico, we've seen they've completely exploded as one of the top states in the entire country for having COVID affect them. Here in California, we also just recently are going to be going into a special lockdown, or once the ICU units hit a certain capacity. And that's actually what we're going to be talking about right now. So looking a little bit into what's going on with California, Governor Gavin Newsom spoke today with in front of everyone to talk a bit about what's going on within the ICU units and how to pretty much pull an emergency brake on the entire state of affairs, specifically looking at things need to slow down now, or the entire hospitals, the entire healthcare industry is going to completely buckle underneath itself. And pretty much it's heading on that trend. It was a pretty intense, very heavy conversation, and that happened in today's earlier press conference. But looking at the new graphic that we have up here on the screen, this is the California COVID map totals as of just today. We can see that 1.2 million people have been affected by COVID in California, 18,000 of them currently just yesterday, and then 113 of them have passed away as of yesterday. In a 14-day trend that Governor Gavin Newsom in his press conference announced that about 1,000 people in the last 14 days have already passed away in California. And in the last just 2 days, it's been 113 people back to back. And this trend doesn't look like it's going to be going down anytime soon. And what I'm going to do now is I'd like to all of us take us to, for a quick moment to look at this clip from Gavin Newsom talking about what's going on in California and what his emergency plan is and why he's pulling this emergency brake.
The 5 regions that we have highlighted, most of these, 4 out of the 5, we anticipate as early as the next day or 2, as early or rather as late as the next week or so, that the greater Sacramento, Northern California regions, as well as San Joaquin Valley and Southern California regions will have reached that 15% or less ICU capacity. The Bay Area may have a few extra days. Our current projections suggest mid, maybe late December, but all within just the next few weeks, our ICU capacity in the state of California will drop in these 5 regions, not just in the aggregate, reminding you none of us live in the aggregate, but in these regions where we all reside, 40 million of us. The ICU capacity in all of these regions by the end of this month will drop, based on our current projections, below 15% in total capacity. what does a stay-at-home order mean? What is on that list in terms of augmentation and new protocols and new guidelines? Take a look here that we're looking temporary closure when the region is placed in the stay-at-home category, that bars, wineries, personal services, hair salons, and the like will be temporarily closed for that 3-week period. Those sectors that will remain open in this new criteria include schools, bars closed, schools opened that have received waivers with the appropriate oversight and safety protocols that we have advanced and we demand in terms of standards. Critical infrastructure, broadly defined on the previous guidances, we have put out retail occupancy at 20% capacity. What we want to avoid is concentrating just in large box retail. Too much of concentrated retail activity that actually would induce more mixing, not less. Thus, the decision by our health professionals and our advisors, which are ample. We've been reaching out across the spectrum for a number of days now to get insight and valuable consideration that we put into play, made that determination on retail and restaurants be open, continue to be open for takeout and delivery.
You know, Governor Gavin Newsom just in this clip from his press conference earlier today has announced that when ICU hospitals reach below 15% capacity within the regions that have been listed, they will immediately go into this 3-week-long stay-at-home order, and the stay-at-home order that he just announced with pretty much locking down the state. Here we have a map coming up on the screen now where it's showing here's the breakdown of the 5 regions. Every single region except for the Bay Area is currently expected to go into this lockdown or in this stay-at-home order within the next day. They're already reaching that 15% threshold, and Bay Area is expected to hit this within the next few days. This just shows how much of an increase has happened within the last month, the spike that's happened. For example, in November 2nd, the amount of people that were killed by COVID were 14. Just yesterday on December 2nd, we hit 113. That's huge numbers, people. And just looking at how many people that are taking up ICU beds, it's just as of Thursday, 8,831 people were hospitalized with the virus in California. The number of patients in the state's intensive care units reached new record numbers as of Thursday with over 2,066 people. These are the numbers that are causing the country, or at least the California, to turn into these into this emergency mode, into lockdown, in order to try and stop the spread and to curb it now before it gets even worse. But one of the big things, though, to take note of what's shutting down. So specifically looking at this, it's not immediate. So this isn't happening right now, but it is expected to happen within the next few days, as I said. Tomorrow for Southern California, San Joaquin, Greater Sacramento, and Northern California. And then anywhere between a few days, maybe 5 days, a week later, for the Bay Area, that's lucky. So people are, you don't go out, no large gatherings there. Everything is supposed to be staying outside. Restaurants at 20% capacity. This is to protect people. However, schools that are given a certificate where they are deemed that they are following enough precautions and procedures to go through are allowed to stay open for their students. And one thing specifically looking at this is that restaurants are having a really big trouble with this, especially in the first wave of shutdowns that happened back in the summer. However, with a lot of these big box, corporations that were able to really, capitalize off of this time where they could survive. But Governor Gavin Newsom has been working really hard, from what he said in his press conference, to try and make it fair and even for the small family-owned businesses. So during this stay-at-home order, they don't go down as well. Specifically, they are allowed, again, 20% capacity that is available. However, there is no outdoor or indoor service allowed. They are allowed to do takeout and delivery, but again, no indoor or outdoor dining, which many of them have already said that they have already sent in complaints. Another big point that I'd like to make is non-essential travel out of the state for any of the districts, so anywhere in the state, is completely prohibited now. So, regardless of the zone that you live in, unless it's for essential work. Another thing is hotels and motels are now restricted to only guests traveling for essential, quote unquote, essential reasons. So if you're an essential worker, if you're a journalist, if something that's essential and you can provide proof, you'd be allowed to stay at a motel and a hotel. Now, a lot of people ask, well, is this being covered or how is this being enforced? Well, this is being enforced not through the state and not through, by state police, but it's supposed to be enforced locally through the counties. The counties are expected to enforce it. However, though, if you're caught doing this, it was governor said that you will be fined heavily, and that this is something that they are taking extremely seriously. And again, the state's biggest concern is the hospitalizations, particularly the ICU units. These units, again, are just going away rapidly. With over 2,000 people, 2,066 people occupying them just within yesterday, that is already pushing the numbers to the extremes in California. Now, one of the other big things with the spike in deaths, as I mentioned earlier, between November 2nd and December 2nd, of over 100 deaths just in a single month on a daily basis, officials have pretty much started prepping for what they and even Dr. Fauci have claimed is going to be a surge upon a surge within California and the rest of the country. Now, this is mostly due to the after effects of Thanksgiving for many Americans that ignored the concerns and the warnings of coming together well during this pandemic, specifically without properly isolating themselves or just social distancing themselves from other people during their celebration. But, ultimately, this just boils down to one main thing, and that's the worst is yet to come. We haven't felt the effects of the after Thanksgiving or the Thanksgiving celebrations yet. So, again, as Dr. Fauci said, and other health professionals, we are to expect a surge upon a surge. And so there will be they're expecting another surge to happen on top of this surge that's already on top of us now, but there is a little bit of hope. And this is what I wanted to say. On a lighter note, we have Governor Gavin Newsom, who does bring up some hope to Californians with the statement that help is on the way when he's talking about the COVID vaccine plan. Now, we have a clip here and take a look.
And I want to just end on an update on the vaccinations. Help is on the way. There is light at the end of this tunnel. We are not in a permanent state. This is a temporary state. This is the third wave of a pandemic with a vaccine that's not under development, a vaccine that's now being distributed, not by one distributor, but by many different distributors, and not just Pfizer and Moderna, not just the Oxford vaccine, AstraZeneca, but others that are in the queue that we've been monitoring through our Scientific Safety Review Committee, through our Drafting Work Groups Committee, and our Community Advisory Committee. It's been working for weeks and weeks, months and months, if you include the Office of Emergency Service Task Force that was organized around our distribution strategy for vaccines. Help is on the way. Vaccines are about to arrive here in the state of California in the next few weeks, and you'll be hearing good news on top of other good news. More and more vaccines will be arriving January, February, March. More and more individuals will be availing themselves the opportunity to take the vaccine.
Governor Gavin Newsom talks about the vaccine that'll be coming in. And specifically, he mentioned earlier on Monday, to go off of what you just saw in this clip from earlier today in his press conference, 327,000 vaccinations are expected to arrive here in California just within the next couple of weeks. Now, within that time, he actually has brought out a plan, and this plan is a three-tiered plan of how the vaccines will go out and how they'll be administered to the most for those who need it. These mostly, I can talk about the tier one plan. So the tier one is, acute care, psychiatric, and correctional facility hospitals. From there, it goes to skilled nurse facilities, assisted living facilities. We have similar settings for older and medically the vulnerable. There are paramedics, EMTs, and others providing emergency medical services, and then the dialysis centers. They have two other steps in tiers that they're going to be going through, but they have to go through all of these vaccines through these tiers. So it may not hit each tier, but it has to get through tier one first. Then the remaining amounts will go to tier two, and then the remaining amounts from those will hit tier three. And then once we go through there, it's expected that we will be starting to have a comeback from the COVID cases, and then another batch of vaccinations will be on the way. And so just kind of reiterating what we went through from what you just saw today in California, Governor Gavin Newsom is pulling the emergency brake on the entire state. Once ICU units within the 5 different districts of California reach that 15% threshold, the 3-week or longer stay-at-home order will go in place. And this will be something that needs to happen until after the vaccinations get here within the next couple of weeks, and then even more continue to come in within the next following months. As Governor Gavin Newsom said, January, February, March, and so on, until many, if not all of the California residents receive vaccinations and are able to get them without delay. Thank you so much for everyone attending. This is a special Happs production, a mini-series called The Review. We looked at California today, and we'll be continuing to stay on California. We usually look at politics and political issues, but this was just so breaking about what's going to be happening today, we couldn't ignore it. So we'll be going back on our normal political review in the following episodes. Thank you so much for watching The Review.